Lagos, you're welcome. If you just joined us, you are just in time. It's time for Lagos Talks 981. My name is Kylie Baker.
And I'm Ayo Mairo Ese. Good morning, Lagos. Thanks a lot for staying tuned.
Yes, and Lagos, you get to talk at this point in time. You get to send in your comments, and we get to fill your pulse on this topic that we're sharing with you this morning. Like we always share with you, you can reach out to us on social media to be a part of the conversation, and also we're streaming live on YouTube, so you can get glimpses of what's happening right here in the studio. We're at Smooth 981 FM. Um, on YouTube. That's youtube.com/smooth 981, and also on Twitter we're at smooth 981 FM with the hashtag Lagos Talks
981.
981.
All right, today we're going to be looking at diversifying transportation in Lagos State. We talked about the headache of traffic in Lagos State, particularly on road transport, and a number of us have complained in recent times. It's almost as if it's gotten worse. We have a number of things to blame for that. We have bad roads, absence of officials on our roads, and I know that one of the main agendas of our current governor, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is to tackle this issue. Indeed, themes, which is what he released as his 6 point agenda for Lagos State, starts with traffic management and transportation. And we thought it was important for us to have this conversation this morning. Don't forget, we'd love for you to join the conversation by sending in your messages, questions, or comments around what we'll be speaking about today. Now, to join us to talk about diversifying transportation in Lagos State, it's our pleasure to have the Managing Director of the Lagos State Waterways Authority, LASWA, in the person of Damilola Emmanuel. Good
Thank you so
morning.
much. Good morning.
Good
Thank you very much
morning.
for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So, when we talk about diversifying transportation in Lagos State, one of the biggest moves of previous administration and now the current government is waterways.
Absolutely.
And in the past, what we've seen a bit of, what's been popular is ferries from Ikorodu to Lagos Island.
Yes.
It's not been very popular with regards to it being a definite alternative source of transport. But I know that what your authority or agency is doing is to promote that as
Yes.
one of the ways that we can reduce
Yes.
hopefully transportation on road.
Yeah.
So it would be great for us, from a number of people who are listening, who are perhaps not familiar with the work you've been doing so far, to tell us, Laswa, what are you doing? What's the agenda to diversify transportation in Lagos State?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on here. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And I think water transportation is basically the next big thing for Lagos State. The current administration is very focused on it, on that. And as you identified from the T, which is traffic management and transport,
Yeah.
already tells you that it's actually going to be all the different modes are going to be given the due attention.
Yeah.
And water transportation, obviously being the one which has slowly developed, is now going to be the focus. And I think if you look at the waterways, there's several components to it. You have the infrastructure, you have the boating operations itself, you have the waterways channels,
Mm-hmm.
you have the safety system and security, and then you now have obviously the routes and licensing and registration and things like that.
Okay.
So what the state government has been able to do is look at each of these components, and then take each of these components and begin to expand on these components. So I'll give the very first one, which obviously is the sort of, I want to say maybe the foundation of this as well,
Mm.
is that where exactly are they going to be moving from point A to point B, which is the infrastructure.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, a lot of those infrastructure from past times were just built for communities. They were built, but the government has said no. We must now look at them because we must now look to expand those infrastructures to accommodate more people. So the government has been upgrading the infrastructure
Okay.
to ensure that we have places to move the people from. Now, the next thing obviously will be the boat operations as well. And in that area, what we've currently seen are, yes, we've seen a lot of the locally made boats, which have been the ones who have plugged the gap for the longest time possible. And this government, being an inclusive government, wants to look for ways to enhance and, be able to help those current boat operators upgrade their boats while also allowing for other private sector operators who you've probably mentioned, the likes of the Ubers and the
Yeah.
Go-Karters wants to get involved
To
as
come
well.
into that
So we've
space.
seen all of that as well. In terms of safety, The state government has ensured, and what we've been able to do is stabilize in terms of the wearing of life jackets from a majority of passengers on the waterways.
Okay.
If you ever find anyone without a life jacket, they obviously have decided to say, look, it's not my personal responsibility, because you have sometimes some stubborn passengers who are telling you, I don't want to wear it, why should I wear it, but we always try to ensure, because what we do is we have what we call water guards, who are like beach masters at the station jetties, and then they ensure that you wear your life jacket. So the state government even has gone a step further, because what we usually do is, if we catch you without your life jacket, obviously you get penalized, you get fined, and the state government
What's
even
the
put
That's the passenger or the
passenger,
boat
the
operator?
passenger and the boat, no, actually not the passenger, the boat operator.
Okay.
The boat operator is the one, because he has the responsibility to say, look, you must wear your life jacket, and he has the responsibility to say, if you don't want to wear your life jacket, then you
I'm
can't
not-
get onto
yeah.
my boat. Yeah,
So how much is the fine?
no, I mean it varies. Those are there's a range. You know what I mean? There's a sort of range for that, but it's I mean those figures are not figures I feel comfortable disclosing. But I mean, they're figures which you as well, if you pay once, you trust me, you don't want to pay it again.
Again, all right.
Yeah,
So the
that's
reason I was asking
yes.
was just to see if it was
A
a
deterrent. It's actually a
enough,
deterrent. It's
yes.
actually a deterrent. So you're not meant to, because once you get fined that way, you know what I mean. And now we even go to the next level to say, look, we can even hand you over to marine police, because then you know that it's a serious offense for you not to wear your life jacket on the waterways, because we work in tandem with the marine police as well.
Okay.
In terms of that as well. So the state government actually even procures life jackets,
Okay.
and now even goes to donate those life jackets to communities and even operators based on the needs that they have. And we see that genuinely, we know that there is a challenging sector in terms of the funding and finances. So we say, okay, what are the ways in which government can come? Because that's always the issue. Where is government subsidizing? What can government do? Government has provided infrastructure. Government can provide life jackets for them as well. And then if you now look at the security, LASWA is not exactly directly responsible for security, but the Marine Police and Navy
That's
handle.
with security.
Yes, they handle security.
But we're going to get to security
Absolutely.
a bit later,
Absolutely.
because I have a question around the functions of. I was having a debate with
Yes.
someone as to, oh, it's the Navy, it's the Marine Police,
Yes.
and just to understand the jurisdiction
Yes.
of each of the agencies,
Yes.
Marine Police. But let's get to that later.
So we get to that. So I think those are the sort of components. And then the last thing I'd like to mention, obviously, is the waterways channels.
Okay.
As you know, there are several waterways users. You have the boat operators, you have the loggers, you have the fishermen,
Okay.
you have the dredgers, and you have the sand miners. So everyone is all on the waterways. And what the state government has been able to started doing now, because we started with 4 of the 14 major routes, we started to say, okay, we need to channelize these routes. So when you say channelization, what does it mean? Channelization simply means that you look at that particular channel, you map out the routes. If it needs dredging helps make the waterways navigable, because sometimes you find out that the waters are shallow, but they should be deep, because as waters, the boats need to go on deep waters. So once you do that, then once you dredge, if there's any need for dredging, the next thing you do is you put what they call marker buoys. So if you look at the 5 Cowrie Creek, for example, I don't know if you've noticed recently around Fallamore stroke VI, there's been some green and red buoys you probably see on the waterways. This 5 Cowrie Creek has been the pilot phase for this marker buoys being put there. But 4 of the major routes are currently being dredged by the state government to ensure that they're navigable for boat operations.
And
So
is there a timeline for this to happen?
yes. I mean, it's meant to be done before the end. They're meant to have finished that before the end of the year. They're meant to finish that for, because it's actually, I mean, it's actually high on the side of funding. So it's something that the state government has to face. That's why
That's
you can't
priority.
do all the routes. Yeah, you have to face you have to do them in phases. So pick 4 of the routes. Maybe next year again, pick another 4 or 5. But ensure that you're picking the major routes which have high traffic, so that we're sure that those places where there's high traffic are easily navigable.
All right, Lagos, let's go on a quick break. When we get back, we'll do some more talking. Don't forget, you're listening to Lagos Talks 981 on Smooth 98.1. Be back after this short breather.
A touch of soul, jazz, rhythm and blues.
Nice one. Well done.
Antidote for that crazy
So far, so good.
So
Doing
many
well.
times.
music.
I was like, how many times have you done this? I don't know how many. it's coming
It
up
feels like too
a
many
script.
times.
Honestly,
It feels like
it's
you've done
it's
this too many
Yeah,
times.
so-
and I feel like the state government wants to do a lot more before I come and talk on radio again. Because you
Okay.
know there's LTV, there's smooth, there's traffic radio. So I get they're
Okay.
always constantly because
Questions.
they're state
Oh
government, they're
yes,
constantly trying to
yes,
invite me
yes,
come, and I'm like I'm still saying the same thing. Let's
yes.
do more things, and I can yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but you know that so for the government-owned stations, their
yes,
audience is very different from Smooth. So
absolutely.
a lot of people,
Yeah, smooth. Yeah, I
yes,
guess you smooth's own crowd is probably
It's
it's
different,
kinda
more different.
different.
Yeah,
different.
much
Yeah, so
different.
it's important for. I mean, a number of people don't know a lot of what you're saying. A number of people don't know.
Yeah.
It would surprise, like
Yeah.
they're not even aware
Where
of
of what's
what is
going?
going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
They see a fancy building, possibly, we're looking for
Yeah,
another video.
and
Like,
they're like,
okay, what's that? Which
nice.
office is that? They
Yeah.
don't even know what's going on.
What does last one mean?
Providence Bank, Future Forward Banking.
Okay, let's come back up to 19.
World class music.
Okay.
I'm
Say,
Bolaji, I'm
what
asking
did
for
you
a
say,
pen
Kaide?
actually. A pen. Can you help me with a pen, please?
What did you say?
No, no. Just can you bring us back in?
Oh, bring us back. Okay.
98.1.
Yes, indeed. 321. It's Smooth 98.1. Your love music, love life station here. And it's Lagos Talk special today for Lagos Talks 981 as part of Smooth Breakfast with Ayo Mairo Ese.
And Kaidi Baker.
And this morning, we're looking at diversifying transportation in Lagos State. Again and again in recent times, we've had complaints of the plight of Lagos road users, commuters, and the headache and trauma of traveling on Lagos roads because of traffic. One of the agendas of the current governor theme, 5 point agenda, is traffic management and transportation. And part of this is to diversify people's modes of transportation so it's easier. One of which is through the agency, the Lagos State Waterways Authority. And we have joining us for this conversation the managing director of LASWA, Damilola Emmanuel. And we've been talking about the the remit of LASWA, what they do, what they're what the
What they've done
responsibilities are,
and what they're still doing.
what they're still doing, what comes under their purview. If you'd like to ask questions or if you'd like to send in your comments or to just generally ask, you have him on the show now. Please ask any question you have. Please send your messages to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. We're also streaming live on YouTube if you'd like to watch. YouTube is at youtube.com/smooth981fm. You can also go onto Twitter at smooth981fm. Use the hashtag Lagos Talks 981 to send in your comments as well. Before the break, we looked at infrastructure. We looked at boat operators. We looked at the people that access your services. We've also talked a little bit on safety. We talked a little bit on fines for those who flout the rules around safety.
Yeah.
But now I would like to dig in deeper. When you were speaking, I don't know if you talked about if LASWA was also responsible or exploring the movement of goods on the waterways. The reason I'm saying this is because one of the biggest headaches for commuters in Lagos is the Apapa gridlock.
Absolutely.
And for so long, we've been looking for an alternative, and people have suggested this and that. And one of the things they've talked about is the carriage of and movement of goods from one point to the other being concentrated just at Apapa port. Is that part of your responsibility?
Yes, it actually is, and it's one of the areas.
Are you listening? Because we get a Papa Gridlock comment almost every day. So please, here you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the areas the state government is looking at. Studies already exist in terms of being able to do that. And one of the things the state government is trying to do is ensure that you have feasibility studies
Yes.
and research is actually done so that you can implement appropriately. So those studies are currently being updated on how best to be able to ensure that we can move goods onto our waterways. And remember that we're just stabilizing the passenger aspect of things.
Yeah.
So after that is fully stabilized, the goods one will definitely be the next thing which we move on to. But currently, as I speak to you, the research and feasibility studies on that is being updated to ensure that it factors in current realities. Because you know the thing about when you do a study in the previous year, then other things have come up on the waterway. So that study is currently being updated as we speak, and then very soon you see that there's going to be some kind of, because what's going to happen is they're going to have what they call transshipment centers.
Okay.
And those transshipment centers will now be where you can move and then use barges to move the containers. So it sort of decongests the roads as well. And I know that currently with the whole Apapa plan that's going on, it's one of the one of the avenues, an alternative they've spoken about as well. So it's all in line. And obviously, you have to work with the federal government as well with that.
Yes.
Yeah, because absolutely, it's not the remit of the states alone.
Mhm.
It also borders on the federal authority as well.
Authority.
Yes.
I need to ask a bit. I need to ask a prod a bit further because
Yes.
this is a big deal for many of our listeners,
Absolutely.
as you would understand, and for many Lagosians.
Yeah.
When you talk about the role of the federal government and Lagos states, usually when we call on the governor, because all we can see is that this port is in Lagos state, the governor is His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, so deal with this matter. Now, where does the responsibility of the Lagos state government end, and where does the federal government begin? So where do we? What is wrong? What is not being done that should be done?
You should bring MP here. I'm just joking. Anyway, anyway, the truth about it is that the ports the port is controlled by MPA, which is Nigerian Ports Authority, and that is a federal agency, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So yes, it lies within Lagos
Lagos,
State.
yeah.
So it's just that obviously you've taken land from Lagos State, but the remit and all the operations of the port still has delves on the federal government. And I'm sure you know that there's this state, there's local, there's state, there's federal government. So the fact that the federal government controls the operations, the state government has to always find a way to coordinate and work with the federal government. So you cannot, the state government cannot just say because it's in my state, then I must have. No, you don't have direct controls over what's coming in and what's going out. So the state government doesn't necessarily have all the statistics and all the details of what's coming and what's going out. All they can see is that the trucks are on their roads, so they must provide the enabling environment, for them to be able to thrive. So the ports will handle all of the operations of those things. And then, and as it borders on the state now needs to look at all the connectivity and the roads and the road network, that how the road network's working and how is that being affected, which is why you see that LASMA is working with FRSC, and they've all come together now to say, look, we need to now just find a way to make all of this work. So I think that's sort of how I like to explain that. But I think if you bring, MPA and an official of MPA there as well will be able to further expand on that for you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, away from this, let's take a look at the introduction of commercial boats, talking about likes of Ubers on the waterways as well. Is there a plan for this? And if there's a plan for this, what are the plans, and how soon are we going to see them as well?
Well, if I give a timeline here, then you hook me and tell me you said this and that. But first things first, let me talk about the commercial boat operations. Like I said, there are currently boat operators who plugged the gap for the last, let's say, 10, 12 years. Now, this is an inclusive government, and that government is not going to come and just say, oh, yeah, we're going to wipe you away, we have new operators. So they're going to work in tandem with those existing operators. And then the likes of Uber, who have also seen the opportunity. And what you have with an Uber is it's quick. It's like taxis. So what you're basically much saying, and what them Ubers are looking at is that, look, how can we also have like taxis on the waterways to complement the mass movement? So you can, for example, now if I want to quickly go with a friend and just two of us, we can just quickly call a water taxi. You have that in Australia, you have that in the Netherlands. You can simply just get a water taxi and it takes you to your destination. So that's currently what Uber is currently engaging us on, and they're already looking at the opportunities, and they're already looking to procure the infrastructure as well. So that is still at its initial stage of discussions, and we're still just engaging one another. So I guess much can be said yet, but the good thing about it is that, yes, the good thing about it is that, look, they are currently engaging us, and they've seen that, look, just the way they're on road, there has been a huge success. They know that the numbers are currently in Lagos for them to be able to make this a success as well. And because they're currently practicing it in two cities, almost like Lagos, they feel that, look, it would definitely be. And they had the leadership of Uber, a sizable number of the leadership come about last week or 2 weeks ago. So it shows you that definitely it's an area of interest for them.
I'm glad you said they have operations in cities like Lagos, because there's nowhere like Lagos. there's nowhere exactly. The peculiarities of this city is. So I will ask you questions around that, but I want to go to our comments first of all, because this is about our listeners. It's for them to air their views. So let me. Bosso has this question. He says, "Good morning, Mr. Damilola and the Smooth FM family. Does LASWA have a bathymetric survey of the Lagos channels, and how can it be accessed?"
Well, we're working on that. We have for a few of them, but obviously you know that there are major routes, and routes keep opening up on a daily basis. So that once it's available, we'll definitely be able to. They'll definitely be able to access that through our website.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Now, with regards to these private operators, what are the plans in place for regulation? Because one of the things that we hope a government agency like yours will do for the people is to protect our interests, because of course we know that these are business organizations. They're primarily interested in profit. Yes, they're not there for, they're there for the people
To put
and
a
mainly
service,
for
but also
themselves.
yes.
The
Yeah.
service they're providing.
Yeah.
So your role to us as the people is to ensure that we're protected.
Absolutely.
One of the things that people have talked about is mapping routes for them, for these operators,
Yes.
and which routes they would cover, and which ones you actually currently cover,
Yeah.
because some people are not aware. So for LASFA, for passenger access, which routes do you currently operate on, from where to where, and how affordable is it for the masses?
Well, in terms of the routes, there are 14 major routes. Basically, I mean, I will not say yeah, exactly list each of them
Each
like
of them,
that, but
yeah.
I'll basically explain. So you have, for example, the Ikorodus, which is the most sort of like viable, which is Ikorodu coming down to the CMS, stroke the CBD, stroke the Five Cowrie Creek, which is VI, Falomore, and also you have Lekki as well. So you have that. You also have those who are moving from the Badagry to the Ojos to the Jegun Egbas. So what you have there as well is that you have all kinds of movement at the different local governments within the state, because you know there are 20 local governments in the state. You can actually access 15 of them by the waterways.
Beautiful.
Yes, so what you currently have now, it's a lot of movement, but let's also remember that this the riverside communities also get a lot of traction, because
Okay.
really with those riverside communities, that's the only way. They hardly have any roads, so they only use the waterway, and many of them have markets, so they're crossing from one side to the other side, or there are schools on the other side. So we have a lot of movement around those areas as well, apart from the ones where you have the people who live on the mainland and who work on the island. So we have a lot of movement between Ikorodu, like I said, and the island. We have a lot of movement between Apapa as well, and sort of the island as well. And we have a lot of movement around those riverine communities as well. The Badagris, the Ijegwegbas, the Ibuti or Jos as well. We have sort of a lot of movement around there. Now, in terms of the routes. Now, what we do is that we have allowed them, because obviously it's a growing sector, it's a developing sector, and currently we have about 2% of the transport modal share, which is what water transportation is covering.
2%.
Yes,
2%.
2%.
Are you looking to increase
Yes,
that?
so that's the whole. So the whole aim in the next 4 years is to get to about 10%,
Fantastic.
where we can easily move it up to about 10. And there's no reason why we can't, because the numbers are also there as well. But like you said, you mentioned something. How do we now protect the passengers?
Passengers,
One of the
yes.
things we ensure is the safety of those boats. So, for example, LASWA carries out a biannual inspection
Okay.
of the boats, and then we have there are certain standards. And one of the things we thrive on a lot is feedback. The passengers, for example, when I was just sitting down over there waiting for this, we get calls. So we tell the passengers to call in if they notice anything. Maybe a driver is over speeding, you let us know. As LASWA, we'll make sure we get onto, because we have the database of those boats and we know where all the different destinations they go to. And also, so if you notice any dent on the boat and you realize that the captain hasn't done anything about it, the captain should do something about it. You should speak and let us know. And then also discouraging night travel, because you shouldn't travel at night. From the last time any boat should leave its jetty, it's about 6:30, because you have about most of the ferry routes are between 25 to 30, sort of like 30 minutes.
Okay.
So ideally, so because once it's 7 and it's dark, then you shouldn't move on the waterways anymore. And every time you're getting onto the waterways, you must wear your life jackets. We're able to ensure that as well. Now, in terms of the fares, considerably the fares are sort of higher than the road transportation, and I think that's quite explainable, because it's an advantageous mode over the road. And what it is that it's saving you time. So it's almost like you're paying for that time it's saving you.
Okay.
Which and another reason why as well is because generally the cost of the infrastructure, the boat itself, and even the cost of petrol is quite high. So I can give an example now. The engines that you probably find them using they probably cost them about 5 million naira.
That's
Just
for
the
one.
yeah, that's
Just
the
for
engine,
one.
and that's that for one. Yeah, the engine they're probably using, and if they decide to get maybe a Tokumbo, then that's much lesser. But most of the time, they usually like to get the
Brand new
original
ones.
ones, because it will last much longer for them. Now that is just even the minimum standard of boats. When you have the much bigger boats, you can go for the engines go as much as 9 million naira. And then think about it, most of them are petrol. So that cost of petrol and then the cost of maintenance of the ferries, there's no how it will not be more expensive than the road transportation. But think about it in this way that also it's more
Saves
it's
time.
saving you time, and then it's less damaging to your health because obviously there's no, there are no fumes, you know what I mean, in terms of there are no fumes to sort of
Yes.
affect you
Yeah.
like that, and then you're not
Carbon
exposed to
monoxide.
traffic and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah, so those are sort of the ways, and that's the reason why it's just slightly more expensive than the road.
All right.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Speaking on this though,
Yes.
talking about these routes,
Yes.
I'd like to divert a little bit and talk about mishaps. What
Okay.
is LASWA doing, to checkmate mishaps, to prevent it, and also, to save the situation in general?
Yeah. At this point, I also like to speak that there's last one, there's also newer. There's a national inland waterway, so there's not national body. So both organizations primarily charge responsibility for overseeing and this kind of issues, and also making sure that we can to prevent mishap. What really causes mishaps? There's several things. One, carelessness on the part of the driver. Two, sometimes they like to break the rules and travel at night. Three, obviously, maybe over speeding. And sometimes also they can run into, maybe they'll say a wreck, or they'll say, you know what I mean? They might say, oh, there's something on the waterways that hit their boat, which
Okay.
sometimes happens because of other waterways users as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, in terms of that, for example, in terms of the wrecks, one of the things state government has been able to do is being able to identify these wrecks, but not just identify them alone. Make sure that, the speed limits are reduced generally in certain areas, especially when you know that other operators, I mean, like the dredgers, like the sand miners, where they are, you shouldn't just want to speed past them, because when you even speed past them, you affect their own operations as well. So the state government has been able to ensure that, look, within a speed limit, you limit your speed limits around other waterways users. One. Now, another thing is that in terms of preventing mishaps as well, is that you must always wear your life jackets, which is why I spoke about earlier on.
Yeah.
Because once you have your life jackets on, no matter the mishap that happens, you'll be well secure until help comes to you. And now help comes to you in terms of, we have a monitoring and a patrol team which is able to get to you in good time as long as the call is made. But what is even key is that we also work with local divers within the communities. So
Okay.
communities are very responsible, and the waterways is almost like a family. Once there are any issues, fishermen are always constantly on the waterways as well. Fishermen are one of the first people to always be able to inform
Yes.
us as last one and be able to let us know there's an issue here, it needs to be resolved. Before you know it, the community has already come together to see how they can now
Rescue people.
begin to rescue people. So we're able to deal with all of these things as well in that way. And obviously continuous enforcement, which has to just be a constant thing from the side of the authorities, and obviously constantly sensitizing and making the passengers, the boat operators
Aware.
aware of the safety measures they should abide by.
All right.
Thank you very much for that one. Don't forget, Lagos, to be a part of the conversation, you can send your messages to WhatsApp. It's 0809 444 0981.
I do have a comment from a question for you. Tosine says, good morning. How can I get a license to operate, and how expensive is it for an SME? Former Governor Fashola built a jetty in Okiafa, Isolo. It hasn't been functional since it was built. Please see to that.
Okay, noted. And I think in terms of the license, it's just contact the authority. I'm sure we'll leave our number here at the end of the show so they can contact the authority in terms of being an operator.
All right. Okay. So now, when you talk about the importance of just very quickly, importance of the local community fishermen, particularly in the area of safety and rescue.
Yeah.
How is there a plan, or is there a way that you build a relationship with them? Or since you know that they're very key when it comes to reporting incidents, are there trainings that you offer them, sensitization, awareness, just to help them further the work you're doing?
Yes, absolutely, we do that. But obviously, there's always still room for improvement. And one of the things state government is looking to do now is have the emergency and rescue in different units of the state, because as waterways is developing, they're going to have a lot more people on the waterways and a lot more boats on the waterways. The state government wants to now expand what it currently has to now ensure that this unit is in 3 different locations. So you're covering the 3 senatorial divisions. So it's easy to respond within 5 to 7 minutes to any emergency.
Okay.
That's what the state government intends to do. But currently, obviously, you have to work with current realities. What do? We sensitize a lot of all these other emergency responders who currently work with us.
Yeah.
Because what we have is, well, we know once you get them off the waterways, you have to also coordinate with the land.
Yes.
So there's Lasema, there's Lasambos, which is also within our reach. But for the local ones, we just go to the communities. We're able to sensitize them. We have relationships, because you always have to deal with the communities. And even when we do life jacket donations, so we build relationships with them.
Yeah.
And even like I said, the fishermen as well. We have to also ensure that we sensitize. We talk to them, we engage them, and even then, we even go a next step by even providing safety equipment for them as well.
All right.
So in terms like first aid kits, we did that for the boat operators last year. We're able to give them safety kits, give them even lights, emergency lights. So when there are issues on the waterways, they can even just put those lights on, and then the light sort of gives a signal.
Searchlights.
Yeah, searchlights give signal to them what's going on.
All right, brilliant. We're going to break now. Thanks a lot for answering those questions. We have a few more to go through. Thanks a lot for your for being able to throw more light on this aspect or this mode of transportation that hasn't. I mean, 2% is very low for a country like Lagos. Lagos is an island, so ideally we should be pushing way beyond 2%.
Yeah.
We'll come back after that break. We'll take your questions. Don't forget, send them through. As you send to us, we'll pose to Mr. Emmanuel. We're going to break. When we come back, Lagos Talks 981 continues.
Future forward banking.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Don't worry. The hot questions, that they are very mellow. We just asking, kind
no, don't worry.
questions, easy
Don't worry, I'm
questions.
used to. I'm used to any kind of questions.
We believe
I'm used to any
should
kind
be
of
efficient.
questions.
It's very good.
Providence Bank. We
At
believe
Providence
banking should
Bank.
be technologically advanced.
So it would be nice to reiterate the agendas that you set out for the year, and maybe when we come back, we can follow through with that, and we'll follow with follow-up questions.
We believe in future forward banking.
I should put longer in this.
Visit any of our branches to open an account.
Love music. Love life.
We are smooth.
We are smooth.
We are smooth.
98.1.
Yeah. Okay, we're back.
Go back.
Yeah.
Put a longer line out.
Oh, it's okay. Okay.
Also this one.
Yeah.
Love music. Love music. Love life. Love music. Love life.
Love music.
Love music. Love life. Love smooth. 98.1.
My lifestyle is music.
Love music.
Something came to mind.
My name is Chinaza.
So we have 20. No, we have 17 minutes more to go. 17 minutes and a break in between. So about 15, even less than 15 minutes. Really.
Okay, Lagos, you are welcome back. If you just joined us, well, you're just in time. You haven't missed too much, but you have missed quite a bit, though. We're talking about diversifying the waterways, and this is our Lagos Talks special, Lagos Talks 981, by the way. My name is Kylie Baker.
And I'm Ayo Mairo Ese. And to discuss the diversifying of transportation in Lagos, we have with us the Managing Director for Lagos State Waterways Authority, LASWA. We have touched on a few things that I do hope has been informative and insightful for everyone who's listening. We've looked at the agenda, we've looked at areas of operation, we've touched heavily on safety as it's been a concern for for many users, for many service users. We've talked about accessibility and fares. We talked about private interest. You talk about the Ubers, the Go-Carders who have indicated interest to offer boat service in Lagos. Now, one area we finished with before we went on the break was around safety and the efforts made by LASWA to ensure that they're working not just on their own, but with community members as well, including local fishermen in terms of reporting and ability to respond very quickly, I beg your pardon, to accidents in areas. But on the 30th of June, a report was made about 2 lives being lost, missing in Lagos boat accident. This was around the Ijegun area. Apparently, what was said was that the passenger boat capsized at Ijede, Lagos on a Saturday night. It was around 8:30 p.m. So talking about the time that is allowed for them to move on water. And they mentioned that the boat was conveying passengers from Ikorodu to Badore in Aja. 21 passengers were on board. Now, what is really important about this was that Lasima had responded as the Lagos State Emergency Management Authority. They'd mentioned that these boats are run by illegal agencies plying waterways without having the state license. They even ply the waterway at night, and the rule states that don't ply waterways after 7 p.m., like you mentioned earlier on. How do we curb the menace of boat operators who are on there without a license? Because what I want to believe as a passenger is that LASWA, I talked about earlier on about protecting the interest of the people, the safety of the people. I want to assume that all the boats that apply in the waterways have been regulated by you. How do we curb that menace of people who are trying to dodge the system and still going ahead and putting the lives of Lagosians in jeopardy?
Yes, I think to be honest, the simple answer to that is just continuous enforcement by the authority, and also, like I said to you, on the waterways we thrive a lot on feedback information. But to go to that incident that actually happened, the truth about it is that when they were going to get on that boat, the passengers knew fully well the captain had no life jackets. So there's also a responsibility there
Yes.
on the part of you as a passenger. I'm not getting on this boat without a life jacket. You must be responsible as well to yourself, because generally on the waterways, that's one of the things we tell passengers and we sensitize passengers about. If there's no life jacket, don't get on the boat. If you notice the captain wants to do anything, you have to say, I'm not going to get on this boat because I should. It's my responsibility. If I get into a car, I should wear my seatbelt. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that happened in terms of that incident as well. So that was already a red flag. And he didn't have any life jacket, so I shouldn't have even gotten into that boat in the first place as well. Because then I'm going to put a risk to the lives of those who I'm carrying on board. Because we really commiserate with those who lost their lives, because it was really, really a sad incident which could have been avoidable. Because at that time as well, you should not even have been there. But like I said to you, to answer your question, not to take away from what our role is as an authority, it's just continuous enforcement. We have to just step up continuous enforcement. And like I said to you, at that time of the night, it will probably be a marine police or the navy who will even be on the waterways as well. So that's why I said we had to work with them, because we are more or less focused on the side of safety. They are more focused on the side of security, but two of them work and they go hand in hand with one another. So it's a continuous work we just have to keep doing, and continuous enforcement.
All right. Thank you very much indeed.
You spoke on life jackets, and there was a report that said that your organization gave out 1,000 life jackets to water users, basically, these transport operators, different communities. So is there a plan to continuously do this?
Absolutely, we do that every year. So we're actually giving out 3,000 this year.
Oh, good.
And we still plan to give out 2,000. So 5,000 in this year will be given out in total. By the end of this year, we'll have given out 5,000 life jackets.
And how are these jackets distributed? I mean,
So basically, they're distributed to the various operators and also to the various divisions. Because what you have, I mentioned the riverside communities where there are a lot of them who are usually there. And because they feel like, look, we can swim, it's our area, no, we still ensure that they have life jackets. But what we also do is ensure that those operators, we have a widespread array of the operators in the different divisions. So we target each division and allocate appropriately depending on how many registered operators are in that division. Then we go there and give them those life jackets.
All right,
Thank you very much. When we come back, we have to go on another break. We have to pay some bills. When we come back, I'd like us to now focus on security. We've touched on safety, but let's look at security.
Absolutely.
We have many, because in the quest to diversify transportation in Lagos, we must ensure that it is attractive enough for people to want to use that mode of transport. And one of the things that we've talked about, which thankfully you've hammered on this morning, is safety.
Yes.
And the responsibility of LASWA, as well as the responsibility of the passenger, which is very important.
Absolutely.
But we also look at security.
Absolutely.
Because some people we've heard of thieves, pirates on the waterways. I don't know how rampant that is. Perhaps you give us the statistics on that.
Okay.
We've heard about people, being at night, particularly during, evening transportation.
Absolutely.
So I'd like for you to discuss when we come back on the break. security, the role of the state marine, and of course the role of marine police, and of course the role of the navy as well. For
Absolutely.
Lagos, this is still Lagos Talks 981. We've been speaking with Damilola Emmanuel, Managing Director at LASFA, Lagos State Waterways Authority. If you have questions, see them coming. When we come back, we'll take your questions and pose them. We have only 8 minutes, so please
Or less.
send them in. If not, nothing. Thank you.
Your forward banking.
Oh, Jenna. Oh,
Was changed.
okay.
Yes.
Flash it. Thank you. It's still on your website as MDO.
Providence Bank, we believe banking
change
should
it.
be made easy.
Because I went to check again. When I saw an article,
Banking should
there was
be
an article
efficient.
that had general manager.
Hmm.
I now checked on your website and I saw MD. So I thought it was still safe. Maybe MD was still was reused.
Hmm.
So I'll correct that.
At Providence Bank, we believe in moving our customers beyond tomorrow.
Yeah.
Providence Bank, we believe
Well,
in
people are suffering
future
great pressure
forward
along the
banking.
beginning to it's a possible enforcement. What does this have to do with Hello? Sorry?
Visit
Is it about-
www.providencebank.com.
Unless it's trying to talk about an alternative.
Let me see.
My lifestyle is music.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
It's about
yeah,
what's it.
alternative. Okay. Look at the first one.
So this one is giving.
Passengers should be fined to along with the boat
Which I
captains.
agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think it all comes down to education as well, because a lot of people that use these waterways, some of them, not a lot of them, are not as literate, right? And
but
they want to
if-
take a cheaper option.
Yeah, but if the drivers, if the captain, insists that if you don't wear it, I'm not carrying you. When they enforce the seatbelt in Lagos, even Okada was wearing helmet, bucket as helmet. You do. Yes, indeed, it's the final stretch for Lagos Talks 91 here on Smooth 98.1. We have been speaking about diversifying transportation in Lagos State. We're doing our bit to ensure that we see the menace of traffic end in our lifetime here in Lagos State. And part of the efforts of the government to addressing this or tackling this is to diversify modes of transportation, one of which is waterways. We have with us this morning the General Manager, Lagos State Waterways Authority, in the person of Damilola Emmanuel. We've been talking quite broadly about the work we've been doing, the passing, licensing, private operators, safety. We're going into security in detail now. But before we go to that, I'd like to read some of the messages that have come in.
This one here from ISIS from Ajara State says, I think the passengers should be fined too, alongside the boat captains, for failure to wear their life jackets.
What do you think about that?
An interesting one, obviously. It's a comment, so we have to obviously
Yeah.
take that in and see how, that might be something to consider as well, because passengers as well sometimes can be put pressure on the operators, and
Yeah.
and sometimes you find them say, I need to get to work on time, hurry up, speed,
Mhm.
so really there should be something that passengers as well will have to be dealt with.
All right, thank you. Then Oalma Chigozie says, good morning all. People are suffering in great measure along Agege Motor Road. There is a pothole close to the bank which has been causing heavy traffic jam along the road. Motorists stay on that traffic for at least 45 minutes every evening, every night. Seriousness and sincerity is the main thing, not just a radio media talk. Tomorrow now, carelessness and unseriousness as seen on the roads will also be experienced on the water. So the reason why he's gone on that is that we are seeing it on the road at the moment, water, which may eventually lead to loss of lives. So I don't know, Walma, I think this is just a general comment around that.
Absolutely.
All right, so yes, sorry, before we went on the break, we're talking about security on the waterways.
Yes.
Okay, tell you what we should do, Lagos. We have one more ad to go, and then when we get back, we'll just wrap up this side of the show, okay? Stay close to you. Don't forget, this is Lagos Talks 91.
Sorry, Dami, what happened?
Apparently,
But this is the ad now.
they said they sent a mail or something about it. There's 940 and there's 951, so we have to pay for the 940.
Not 940 now.
We just did. Isn't that this one? Isn't that this one?
No, we've done 940.
This is
Please don't.
931 now.
How may I help you?
We just took 2 breaks now.
Yeah, I think this 941 is new because she said that she didn't copy me in the mail, she forgot. So perhaps she sent you
No,
guys.
maybe it's not 940. Maybe it's 944
Just call me now.
I didn't say anything else.
or 945. Sorry.
You know what?
One
It's
second,
fine.
let me
It's
see.
fine. It's 5 actually.
Let me see the hard marker.
This is 51 here. 52. Okay.
Well, so how many attempts did we have?
We took one here now, Abby.
Yeah,
Then we took another one here at
We've done
31.
10, 31, 40. So long as she added an extra, don't mind.
I didn't see
that's
it.
what
She
it
Me, I
added
didn't see it. I
that's why
actually
she added a
assumed it was
separate
51.
40. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said, that it's new, that she didn't inform
Okay.
me before.
Alright, so
Sorry,
our time
guys.
has been reduced. So we have only
So
about
sorry.
3 minutes. That's our producer, Lakumin. She's the one that you've been engaging with.
Okay, that's what you need to know.
0800 Samsung or visit Samsung.com. Offer valid while stock lasts. Terms and conditions apply.
So when we
You
come
like
back
the
from
ad? Yeah, bump into it.
when we come back, because we have only about
3 minutes.
2 minutes, even in fact, okay, 3 minutes. We said we go off at 49. We should really finish around
50.
49.
50 because there's a
50
51
for
ad
the-
here.
Okay, 50 for the outro is 1 minute. That's why.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. Oh yes, certainly. So that's what I wanted to say. So we'll talk about security. Just touch on it very quickly because I teased that we're going to talk about that. Once we do security, sorry, well done. Once we've done security, then I'll ask you final statement, and then you can talk about how people can.
Finance. Okay.
Yeah. So just to wrap up a final statement, we're not able to take phone numbers. We'll just able to take social media handles.
Okay.
Yeah, social media handles. Yeah, website.
Hey, Dad.
Abike, who is this?
Dad, meet T-Body. T-Body, meet my dad.
T-Body.
I'll be back.
Could have sit down, young man. What do you do?
I'm into
Female anatomy. Abi?
no, sir. Fitness and brain.
What are your plans for my daughter?
Before Captain the boat departs, his duty
just
and
her.
insurance purposes.
He's my instructor.
Trust
Captain
issues
must
can
reserve
make
the
you
right to
suspect anything.
to
But when
board a
it comes to
passenger that
calls,
refuses
that's
to
a smart talk.
comply
Somewhere at
before
ease. So free your mind.
departure.
Enjoy a flat rate of 11 kobo per second to colo networks plus 7 naira access fee on first call of the day. Dial *315# to join.
Hey, we're ready.
Yeah, ready to go.
Oh yeah, show me your license.
Dad!
Airtel, the smartphone network. 98.1. So much of what you like. So much of what you need.
Love live.
Welcome back, Lagos. It's the final stretch here on Lagos Talks 981. And before we leave, Joe, we have a few comments and, let's quickly get to those before we wrap up this side of the
we
show.
wrap up. Thank you so much, Dami Emmanuel. Dami is the general manager at LASWA, and he has been with us speaking very broadly about the work they do, as well as very, very importantly, diversifying transportation in Lagos State and the moves to ensure that this becomes a reality. Amos Akpan has this to say.
He says, before the captain of the boat departs, his duty must include passenger checks, proper seat, properly geared with life jackets. Captain must reserve the right to deboard a passenger that refuses to comply before departure.
All right, thank you. That's just probably to respond to Icy's comment earlier on with regards to fight. Amos does not want you to find him as a passenger. Find the captain. Or Adamu says, please, how do you interface or collaborate with National Inland Waterways Authority? That's NIWA that you mentioned earlier on for effective regulation and enforcement.
Yeah, we had in the times past we've had our loves lost, but in recent times we're now working together to ensure that working towards development for the waterways really. So we both have setting up a committee that looks into all of these things, and then we come in with one uniformed regulation on the waterways.
All right, thank you very much. Now, final question before we let you go. Final question and statement, because we have only about a minute to go. But just to really touch on security, because this is an important aspect to assure passengers that they're safe on the waterways, they're secure. There are measures in place to ensure their security, and of course, final statement.
Yeah, security. If you see something, say something, Ali. So they always say that. But also apart from LASWA as well, which handles safety, security is mainly handled by Marine Police and Navy.
Okay.
And we just coordinate with both of them and give them information where they need information, and they give us information as well. So we feed up off each other. It's a collaborative effort.
Okay.
In terms of security.
All right.
Yeah.
And how effective has that been so far?
I mean, it's very good. But obviously, they like what it is. They still need to be enhanced. Their capacity needs to be enhanced. But we've not really had issues of pirates along the inland waterways. When you go into the bigger vessels, you probably have that. Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about how people can reach out to you.
Social media handles just at Talk to LASWA. Just Talk to LASWA. So if it's Instagram, at Talk to LASWA.
How responsive is it though? Is how quick is the response?
It is.
Response time.
It's quite quick. It's quite
Now,
quick as
earlier
well.
today, I had to say this because
Yes.
earlier today, a number of people criticized government agencies and their websites and information portals that they're not
Yeah.
up to date.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't respond to. Is that the same with Laswa?
We try our best. Yeah.
What a
We're youthful.
political-
We're youthful, so we try our best. We're
All
youthful,
right,
so
so
we
people
try our
can
best.
send you messages on your website.
Absolutely,
Send you
yeah.
messages on Twitter.
Website is waterways.com. Then the social media handles are just talk to last one.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
so
once
much.
again.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Damilola Emmanuel,
Thank you so
General
much.
Manager at Lagos State Waterways Authority, LASWA. And like he's mentioned, go on their website, engage with them on Twitter, and ensure that you explore the option of using the waterways as opposed to clogging our roads in Lagos State.
That's how we call it in the morning this morning, Lagos. But you know what? The fun never ends at the Smooth Station. After this, it's going to be Strictly Soul with the Genie. Good morning.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hope you had
Wonderful.
had fun and
In case